Awesome. Thank you, Spencer, and really appreciate the invitation to be here. I've got just a few minutes, so I've been asked to talk about the SBIR STTR program, which is a funding mechanism from the federal government that will fund early stage technology. So let me just kind of go through a couple brief slides, and then hopefully there's time for some Q&A. I work for a partial owner of a firm that does this for a living, and we work across the country. Matter of fact, I was in Utah last fall in October, and with the Nucleus Institute, and I know the team there, and they're a great team. They're a great resource for this kind of work. So if you hear enough about this, you get interested, make sure to contact them. A little bit about myself. I started my career as a naval officer. I was a warranted contracting officer for DoD while I was active duty. I also became an executive for a startup that won about 20 million in SBIR and then another 40 plus in non-SBIR follow-on funding. And so the company when I started was about 12 people. Now it's about 200. I'm still on their board of directors, and we successfully used SBIR funding to develop a pretty crazy technology using the superconducting accelerators from the big national labs to produce medical radioisotopes, so nuclear medicine. And now we're in production and selling radioisotopes for cancer treatments. One of the most promising cancer treatments called targeted alpha therapy. And we just have closed a number of 100 million plus kind of supply agreements with several companies that you would recognize: Bayer, AstraZeneca, and Novartis. I've been doing this as a consultant for about 8 years, almost 9 years now, and I serve as a reviewer for several SBIR agencies. So, what is SBIR STTR? So again, it's basically it's a program that the federal government has had for about 44 years now. That is about 5 billion every year nowadays. And the whole point of it is to take technologies from inventors or national labs or universities, spin it into uh, products and services that will help our society. Okay, there's two programs, two sister programs: SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research, and then STTR came 10 years later, Small Business Technology Transfer. Together, $5 billion. So what are these two programs? How do they get funded? So Congress said 40 some years ago, thou shalt do this if an agency has a certain budget in research and development. So if a agency has $100 million or more research budget, they have to do SBIR. They carve out 3.2% of that $100 million budget and they put it into the SBIR. It's a set aside for SBIR only. If that agency has a billion, they have to do both SBIR at 3.2% and an additional 0.45% for STTR. So those are separate set asides. They're carve out. As taxpayers, there's no cost to us because it sets aside a certain portion of the existing appropriations. So there's 11 agencies that participate in SBIR, and 6 of those 11 agencies are at that higher threshold, and they have to participate in both. And they can't opt out. They have to do this. And then the SBA, Small Business Administration, oversees it and does policy directives and that kind of stuff. So what's the point? Basically, it's to bridge one of many valleys of death in trying to take an early stage technology into the marketplace. Okay, so the first of which is You've got this really great idea, whether you're at a university or national lab or you're just an inventor that's got a great idea that could be turned into a product that has real value to our society. You're going to need money to develop that. But the problem is because it's technically risky, and that's the whole point of SBIR, STTR, it's got to be technical in nature. But because it's technical, you're not going to be able to attract angels, venture funds, any of that kind of private investment. Maybe you might be able to convince your rich brother-in-law, but aside from that, you're not going to be able to because they're not going to want to invest until you've de-risked it. And the only way you can de-risk it is to start developing it. And you need the money. So you get caught in the chicken and egg situation where it's one of many valleys of death. And that's where SBIR STTR is designed to bridge that. It provides early money to be able to de-risk the technology. So if you think of risk, the higher the risk, the less money that's going to be available. Okay. When you first start, basically you're going to have your own money and that's it. Maybe some friends and family, but that unless you're, part of the Walton family or the Gates family, it's going to be small dollars. And so that's where SBIR has a little bit more than a typical family and friends. And we'll talk about the scale of SBIR. Once you keep, you get through this de-risking process through the SBIR program, then you might be able to start attracting angels and maybe venture later, and then eventually banks. But banks, again, they're gonna bank based on revenue from sales. They're not gonna probably look at your revenue from grants and non-dilutive funding to bank you. So it's important to kind of keep in mind how much is available to you and when at what point of risk. The lower the risk, the more money is going to be available. So let's talk about specifically SBIR. It's a three-phase program. Remember, I talked about the carve-outs. Those will pay for the first two phases. The very first phase is basically a proof of concept, feasibility. You just show that this new idea that you have, that we can actually use a superconducting accelerator to, at cost and at scale, produce medical radioisotopes in a way that's commercially viable. That took a lot. It took us quite a bit of time to show that that was actually possible in a commercially viable way. The big labs can do it, but those things cost $1 billion. And so we had to show that we could make this into a machine that would fit into your garage and still be, effective. So typically these phase one awards are between 100 and 300,000 or 400,000, depends on the agency. Every agency has their own budget, and they're generally 6 to 12 months. You have to show that the idea works. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It's just showing that it will work. Maybe it's a benchtop, lab-based kind of just proof of concept study. Then you get through that and you then apply for phase two. Phase two is generally 1 to 2 million. Again, depends on the agency. And it's 2 years. And the idea is during phase two, you get to a proof or MVP. You've gotten a minimum of viable product. Now you're able to start selling your product, start bringing in some revenue, continuing to improve that product or service in a way that's going to start to give you a bigger and bigger market opportunity. That's the idea of the program. Phase three, not funded by SBIR dollars, is when somebody, could be the federal government, usually it's commercial, but depends on the agency, somebody is buying your good or service. So there's no limit to that. You can sell your product for as long as you can, for as much as you can get. And again, it could be the federal government's buying your product, but that's not going to be SBIR dollars if it's used for, like if The DoD, for example, buys a lot of SBIR products. NASA does. They have to come from some program of record to do acquisition. Does not come from SBIR. SBIR is R&D funding only. Okay, so what do you need? So I'll just go through this quick. Basic eligibility has to be a for-profit company, U.S. owned and controlled, meaning half of your owners are U.S. citizens or permanent residents, over half. And you have to be less than 500 employees, located in the United States. All the R&D funds that you get from SBIR are required to be spent in the United States. You have to have company-controlled research space adequate for whatever you're developing. That varies greatly depending on what your product is. If you're doing software, that could be a small office like my office here, like 10 by 10, and a high-speed internet. That's probably all you need. The company I came from, cryogenics, high power, microwaves, radiation shielding, licensing from the NRC, all sorts of infrastructure needed just to turn on the machine. So it depends on what you're developing. And then there's several active registrations. I can't go into all the gory details for time, but be happy to, help walk you through all those requirements. So really, to apply, all you really need is your small business formed, a physical address, a company bank account. Those are required to get the SAM.gov registration. You will need that SAM.gov registration active to be able to apply. I have several clients that are applying for a due date today in an hour and a half. And one of them didn't have their SAM registration. And so they're kind of stuck. They can't apply. In order to receive an award, you're going to have to hire people. You're going to have that facility under your control, usually through a lease or a contractual arrangement if you don't own it. If you own it, that's easy. It's your control. And then there's going to be some other things that you're going to need. Like I mentioned, you may need a license to operate certain things, depending on your technology. There's 11 agencies that I mentioned. This is the logo of each of those 11 agencies. This is the relative size of the budgets for the SBIR STTR. So you can see that DoD is more than half the program, 3/5 to be more accurate. And so it's a big part of the program is just DoD itself. Health and Human Services, which is mostly made up of NIH, but does have a couple other smaller, CDC, for example, and FDA also have SBIR money. They're a little over a quarter. Then the other big agencies, Energy, National Science Foundation, NASA, and USDA, all have both SBIR and STTR. And then the smaller agencies that only have SBIR, Homeland Security, Transportation, Education, Department of Commerce has both NOAA and NIST, and then EPA is the smallest of all the agencies that participate. And some of these agencies will make an award by a grant. Those are shown in green here. And some will issue a contract. And so those ones are shown in black. Both of which are still, even the contract agencies, they're still non-dilutive in the sense that any government money that you get is not going to have a dilutive effect on your company. In other words, the government doesn't ask for ownership. Now, I know the current administration has made very few equity investments in some companies, but the SBIR is not going to do that. This is that was Anduril and maybe SpaceX and some of those big companies, but you don't have to worry about that. None of your money from the feds will take any ownership. So that's important to know, even if they send you a contract. How to be competitive? Well, first of all, understand the goals of that particular agency that you've targeted. You've said, well, this is, we're doing medical devices, so we're going to go to NIH, maybe NSF, maybe DoD, because they all are interested. Understand the review criteria. Make sure to have a strong team. As a reviewer for several agencies, team is really vitally important. It's the technology is important, the idea that you have, but the team who's going to pull it off is just as important. Make sure you have the appropriate facilities and resources, because as a reviewer, you got to make sure can they pull it off, and do they have the right facilities and equipment? Make sure to follow a strategic plan, follow the rules. It's kind of obvious. Make sure you do those registrations early. Um, Registrations can take 4 to 6 weeks. So you got to back up from when you have to submit. Like I have a client today that's trying to submit at 3 p.m. Eastern, but the registrations aren't done. They didn't start soon enough. And so they're going to miss out on this. And make sure that you submit your proposal early. And with that, some resources. I just put a link to our website where we bring in on a monthly basis what we call from the source's mouth. And that is where we bring in a program manager from one of the SBIR agencies. And they just talk about, because every one of these different agencies executes the program a little differently. And within DoD, because there's 14 different components, component meaning Army, Navy, Air Force are the big ones, but there's a whole bunch of other ones, right? The DARPA, for example. They all operate a little different. So we bring them in for usually about a half an hour. They'll talk about what's specific at Navy, for example, and how we're different than Army and everybody else. And then there's open question answer for 30 minutes. So it's free. You can just register. We do it on pretty much a monthly basis. We record them. These are all listed on our website right now. Um, and our upcoming will be energy, homeland security, and then later in the fall we'll probably do USDA and a couple others. So stay tuned. And then with that, I just put our website here, and you can feel free to reach out to us. I would also encourage you to reach out to the people at the Nucleus Institute. They definitely have expertise there that can help you walk through this process. We charge for our services, they don't. And so, but the really great organization there. Dylan's the new director there, and so feel free to reach out to them. And with that, I'm happy to take some questions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jerry. This has been educational. Appreciate it. So if you've got a question, you can come off mute or you can put it in the chat. Andrew, you got your hand up already? Go for it, man.
Yeah, no, this is a very timely conversation. I appreciate you, Jerry. So I'm over at Rice University down in Houston. We're looking at, different ways that we can kind of, commercialize the technologies within the university. One thing that I've kind of proposed is, working with our Office of Research Development to kind of help with the grant writing for SBIRs. We're kind of looking at it in two ways. One, having a support service for faculty members that want to create a startup and helping them in that way. The other way
Sure.
is, finding grant opportunities that align with technologies that our own faculty members don't want to commercialize, but then promoting those opportunities and the grant funding to, corporate partners that may want to jointly develop the technology. One of the concerns that we've kind of had is, how involved do the faculty members need to be in this grant writing process? If they don't want to personally commercialize it, they got 100 other things they need to do. So we're trying to see, hey, how can we simplify this to streamline it to where we have an Exxon or a Chevron that, wants to, write a grant jointly together, but still getting the valuable input from the inventors. So just kind of curious, like how involved you've seen the inventors and then also timeline for the grant submission process.
Yeah. Now, Andrew, are you with the tech transfer office there at Rice? Or are
Yeah,
you?
I'm a
Yeah.
licensing manager within the office.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'd love to have a longer discussion because we work with a lot of tech transfer offices across the country and provide services for them to accomplish what you just described. So to answer your question, typically a cycle we would want to work with the author, whether it's the founder or the professor or whatever, for 8 to 12 weeks at minimum to kind of do some iterative work. I've seen a lot of different ways to do that, whether the founder, him or her, just decides to license out the technology once it's gotten de-risked through this process, or they decide they want to stay with the company. I've seen lots of different things. A lot of times they'll hire a grad student that's more gung-ho on trying to be a business person. I've seen lots of models.
Yeah, gotcha. Thanks.
But yeah, feel free to reach out. I'd love to have a longer discussion.
Cool. I'll reach out to you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, please.
Thanks, Andrew. Christian put a question in the comment there. I don't know if you can see it, Jerry, but he says they've got an STTR proposal that's been recommended for funding, but it's been stuck in that status for months. Any thoughts on what's happening and what they can do to move things along?
What agency is that with?
The NSF, National Science Foundation.
NSF. Yeah, NSF has been, I mean, I serve as a reviewer. I've done panels over the last several months, even when the program was on hiatus. They're trying to catch up. My recommendation would be to reach out to the program director that you applied to and just keep hounding them to say, hey, when are you gonna when are you gonna make this award? Is this just trying to see. Uh, Hopefully that helps.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm sure there'll be one. Sometimes it takes a minute. Just scrolling back up through here.
And gentlemen, if you don't mind, I'll just put out a word here for the Nucleus Institute. So, Jerry, thank you again for the good words.
Hey, Alex, good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. So like Jerry mentioned, and like I put in the chat, Nucleus Institute is barely a year old, but it's you still have the Utah Innovation Center's team, Dylan Doty, who was supposed to attend and unfortunately couldn't make it, so he apologizes. So I'm taking his place. So we're here to support you. I'm still part of that same team. Dylan is still part of the same team. We offer technical assistance. We review proposals. We're not in charge of writing the proposal, but we can help you to optimize your application to be as competitive as possible, and then follow up on opportunities, topic fits, additional workshops and trainings. So we're here for Utah businesses for that purpose. So again, feel free to reach out to me at nucleusutah.org. And happy to connect with you and see how we can support you.
Thanks, Alex. So sometimes our audience skews Utah. It looks like today we've got a good mix from inside and out. I see Rob, you're in Wisconsin and offered assistance. Between Rob and Alex and Jerry, are there any stats or any data on companies who go through a resource center or have, a paid helper get them versus just going on their own?
Yeah. So, and before I answer that question, Spencer, we are connected to the FAST network. There's a organization called FAST, Federal and State Technology Partnership, funded by SBA. The Nucleus Institute is the Utah. Rob, I know, is in good to see you, in Wisconsin. We are the FAST awardee for the state of Michigan. And so we work across the country. We can get, if I see a lot of people, I mean, Andrew's from Texas, we can get you connected to that. I think each of these FAST networks has their own program. I can just speak for the Michigan program, which our firm has run for 20 plus years. And we have found that about double, if not a bit better than double the national average. So around 25% of our clients will get funded versus a 10 to 15% funding rate for phase one. And so it helps to get, input. Basically, what we do is serve as the reviewer before they submit their proposal to the review staff. And so we know what to look for. We know how to build these proposals in a way that's going to be more competitive.
Awesome.
And I would say for Nucleus, historically, similar statistics. I think and Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, the first time applicant has probably 11, 12, 13% chance of getting a phase one award.
Yep.
And again, there's variation depending on the agency, depending on if you're applying SBIR, STTR. So, but yes, I mean, I would say our statistics are very similar to yours, Jerry.
Yeah, in Wisconsin, we have the same stats. I think it's about the same. Size of the company is very small typically. Most of our clients are 1 2 people, maybe tops, maybe
Yep.
3. Very, very small is a very common one. We've also had some companies that are actually, larger. I don't know that I've ever had one with close to 500 people, but I've seen companies with 60 or 70 employees also get SBIRs as well. But most of our clients are probably 1 or 2 person shops here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, Mike Rich just asked that question. I think that's it can vary by agency in terms of the size of the company. What I see at DoD in particular is typically they will, I mean, I've certainly had clients that have been onesie, twosie, kind of very early stage awardees, even at DoD. Generally speaking, though, DoD is looking for a more mature company because they want to develop some widget, right? Here's a new widget that they want to go on whatever the Air Force wants to put this new thing on the F-35. So they write a topic. Well, once they develop this widget, they're going to need it supported for the next 20 to 30 years. So they want to see a company that can develop the technology, but then produce it, service it, spare parts, all those kinds of things. So they're looking for a little bit more mature, whereas NSF flat out, if you're less than 5, you're in the 90th percent. I mean, 90% of their companies are really, really early stage, first money kind of. And so there's a variation across the agencies. Let's see. Check size. Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on the phase. Phase 1 is generally $250,000, whereas phase 2 is generally $1 to $2 million. And just a reminder, phase 1 is your proof of concept, and then your phase 2 is more developed your MVP. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but it's at least something where you can start generating some revenue. And many of the big agencies have supplemental phase 2 funds because, often, especially with hardware, if you're doing anything hardware development, you're not going to get to an MVP really with 3 years and $2 million. You're going to need more, and they recognize that. So there is usually at the bigger agencies supplemental funding. Do we see software companies? Yeah, absolutely, all the time. Matter of fact, there's a lot of software development. And Christian, I see, you're asking. I would be curious who the program director is. Maybe you can reach out to me offline and give you some thoughts about how to reach out to them and just find out. When did they say you're recommended for award? Was it like a week ago? Was it 2 months ago?
Probably been close to maybe 2.5 months ago.
Yeah, usually from the time when they say it's recommended for award to when you get the money it can be now a couple months because there's a bunch of extra layers. The new administration has put a bunch of extra layers of approvals before they're going to write checks on the grant, particularly for any granting agency, of which NSF is a granting. So there's extra layers that have to go through it. I just stay in touch with your program director.
Okay.
And Christian, based on 2021, 2022 impact report data from the SBA, the NSF tends to be the slowest agency of all. between 6 to 9 months to kind of process an award.
Okay.
So I would say 2 months is not too long in a way, but I can understand how you want this to move forward. So,
Yeah, yeah.
like Jerry said, reach out to the program director and feel free to interact with us. Maybe we could find ways to help you out.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see. Can you get the slides? Yeah, for sure. Spencer, I can
Yep.
send it to you
We'll
or
work
to
with Hannah on that.
happy to
Is
do.
there a final question? Anyone out there? Burning question. This is your chance. You've got some great experts here.
Really quickly, Spencer, this is Christian Iverson again. The practical aspects of receiving an award, kind of the backside, whereas there's a two-person operation, just getting started. Like financial record keeping, security type of systems. What kind of like I guess we'll just maybe focus on financial systems. What kind of financial systems would you recommend having in place and to be able to report and to be auditable?
Yeah, so yes, you're going to need to have adequate financial systems. We assist with that. That can be you can pay for that out of your indirect costs as part of your budget. And but yes, the short answer is you're going to need to be compliant, and there's some very solid best practices that we could help you with. There's other people that can help with that as well, but you're going to need to do that. And I see Salma's got hand up. Do we have enough time for a last question?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Last question, Sam.
what's the fastest you've seen someone go from idea to MVP to commercialization?
Software is usually the fastest from the time you first send in an award. You're not going to get an answer. The best you're going to get uh, outside, just hands down, best you're going to get is 3 months to being notified you're going to get the award, probably another month to 6 weeks to get the money. And then, usually it's 6 to 8 months for phase one. Then you apply for phase two. That's usually a 4 to 6 month gap. And then phase two is 2 years. So we're talking about 3 years there to go
So,
through both phases. Even
so if I were to simultaneously build something and do it separately, does that still count, or do I have to have it in the ecosystem of SBIR?
it depends on the agency. Some of the agencies, they like to see that you're making progress even while you're waiting. But the whole point of this is you're trying to de-risk something that somebody else that a private investor just won't invest in because it's too technically risk, not market risk. Everything's a market risk, but technical risk. And so if you're trying to show that this new idea, this new widget will actually do what is needed for whatever this problem that you're trying to solve, technically that's what de-risking, that's what SBIR will pay for. And then hopefully you can get um, to attracting private capital later down the road.
Awesome. This has been great, Jerry. Thanks for coming on today, and especially for the
Absolutely.
Q&A.
Pleasure to be asked. Nice to meet you all. Feel free to
So,
reach out.
yeah, you'll all get an email from Hannah later today with or tomorrow with the slides and contact information for Jerry. And then we invite you to connect and follow Midday Connect on LinkedIn and YouTube. And then we'll be back here next week at the same time.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.